dias from San Gervasi. This is the Rorschach Spain update from the 6th of August, 2026. Quick summary of what's going down in Spain. We are super late this week. Very, very sorry. First up, story that's been in the headlines worldwide. The European Union has praised Spain's swift response to the migrant emergency in the autonomous city of Ceuta after about 72,000 migrants crossed into the Spanish enclave from Morocco between the 30th and 31st of July. Fernando Grande Marlaska, Interior Minister, said approximately 70,000 migrants have already been returned to Morocco. Accurate data is difficult to obtain at this point. The crisis claimed at least 75 lives on the Spanish side of the border and over 10 in Morocco, prompting concern across Europe. Trigger for the mass migration remains unclear. Some officials have talked about criminal networks and social media misinformation encouraging thousands to cross. The surge also followed a Spanish court ruling limiting the immediate return of migrants who were intercepted at sea. But there's strong evidence that the Moroccan police and border guards not only allowed but incited and encouraged the thousands of migrants. Sanchez has many autocratic enemies, particularly Bibi and Trump, and Sanchez has had discussions with Algeria, who Morocco has issues with. Morocco claims the two enclaves, which have been under Spanish control for centuries. Of course, just as the Straits of Hormuz are an important global choke point, so is the entrance to the Mediterranean in terms of geostrategy. Finally, several European right-wingers like Meloni, soon up for elections, were extremely quick to talk about open borders and threats to the Schengen area in such a way that coordination is clearly possible. Seems quite likely that the whole thing was a Russian-style active measure by Morocco with plenty of international coordination tossed in. Off the back of last week's crossing, the country's North African enclaves of Ceuta and Melilla have come under renewed scrutiny. Both territories have been fully governed by the country since 1497 in Melilla and 1668 in Ceuta and are fully integrated parts of Spain and the EU. However, Morocco has consistently claimed them as occupied territories, and they are not part of the Schengen area. The crisis intensified fears that Morocco wants to use migration as a form of pressure, drawing comparisons with the 1975 Green March, when Morocco took control of what was previously called Spanish Sahara, and also with Putin bombing Syrian civilians in 2015 and 16 to drive refugees into Europe after it invaded Ukraine. Spain insisted that enclave's sovereignty is non-negotiable, while officials reject suggestions that their status is open to debate. The dispute has gained international attention after comments from U.S. Congressman Mario Diaz-Balart and Israel's UN ambassador appeared to question Spain's control. And this recent issue hasn't just affected European and international government relations, it's spread into sports as well. Wednesday the 5th, the central government's junior coalition partner, Sumar, urged the government to reconsider co-hosting the 2030 FIFA World Cup with Morocco following the migrant emergency in Ceuta. Left-wing party has submitted a non-binding motion calling on sports authorities to review the joint tournament with Morocco and Portugal, arguing that human rights concerns should take priority. Sumar accuses Morocco of using migration as a political tool. While Prime Minister Pedro Sanchez has defended Morocco's cooperation in returning most migrants, opposition politicians have demanded greater accountability from the government in Rabat. Similar concerns have also been raised in Portugal, where the Livre Party has called for reassessment of the World Cup partnership. Although Sumar's proposal is unlikely to gain parliamentary approval, it highlights growing political tensions over Spain's relationship with Morocco. Next up, tiny village of Jabaloyas in Aragon, northern Spain, is preparing for the country's first total solar eclipse since 1905 by closing vehicle access to El Jabalón, one of the country's most sought-after viewing locations. The village is home to just 60 residents, but thousands are expected to visit the total solar eclipse. Authorities say safety and environmental protection must come before tourism. Its mayor, Oscar Castillo, warned the narrow mountain road could become dangerously congested and block emergency services. The route also passes through the UNESCO-listed Valle del Cabriel Biosphere Reserve, where a risk of wildfires remains very high. From the sun to wind, on Tuesday the 4th, Spain awarded 612 million euros in state funding to modernize its wind and hydropower infrastructure under Repotendos program, exceeding the scheme's original budget because of strong developer interest. The funding will support over 80 wind repowering projects and over 90 hydropower upgrades financed through the EU's Next Generation EU Recovery Program. Together, the projects will land over 2,000 megawatts of wind capacity and over 1,000 megawatts of hydropower, which is the equivalent of powering around 16 million homes for an hour. Around 90% of the funding will go to wind projects, replacing nearly 3,000 aging turbines with fewer than 500 larger, more efficient machines that can better support the electricity grid by 2030. Let's head to the Basque Country, where San Sebastián Mayor Jon Insausti has ruled out reversing the city's ban on charity dinners for homeless people despite appeals from volunteers. The city introduced the ban last Thursday after arguing that the street food distributions were an issue for public health, and instead they plan to open a municipal soup kitchen. Kaliko Afari Solidariauk, which serves hot meals to around 300 vulnerable people each day at 3 locations across the city, urged the council to let it continue operating until a new facility opens. But Insausti rejected the request, insisting that the support center would open during August. Understandably, volunteers warned that more than 200 homeless people could go without a hot meal in the meantime. Heading down south on Tuesday the 4th, the Sierra de Espadán wildfire in Spain's Valencia region was finally brought under control after 10 days of firefighting. The blaze began in Laval de Uxó and burned close to 10,000 hectares, or the equivalent of almost 2,000 football fields, destroying nearly 12% of the Sierra de Espadán Natural Park, one of the region's most important protected areas. Emergency services confirmed the fire was officially under control on Tuesday the 4th, after successfully containing it within established control lines and preventing any further spread. Although the fire is now under control, crews are expected to remain on site, monitor hotspots, and prevent any flare-ups before it can be declared fully extinguished. Over to Catalunya. On Wednesday the 5th, the entire R3 Rodalies commuter train line was suspended after a copper and fiber optic cable theft caused a signaling failure, making train operations unsafe. Disruption affected the route linking La Hospitalitat de Llobregat and Puigcerdà via Barcelona, Granollers, Vic, and Ripoll, forcing authorities to replace trains with buses. Rail infrastructure manager Adif said that the theft occurred between Las Franquesas and La Garriga and is working to restore services as quickly as possible. The line has faced repeated closures over the past year because of engineering works, infrastructure failures, fallen trees, and damaged power lines. Delays to planned upgrades mean the full line is now not expected to reopen until January 2027. Next, official figures from the National Statistics Institute show more British pensioners are leaving Spain than moving there for the 3rd year in a row. Number of UK residents aged 65 and over fell by around 2,500 in 2024, with more than 6,000 leaving the country. Overall, Spain's British-born population has dropped from almost 300,000 in 2022 to 282,000, while arrivals from the UK have fallen by 41% since 2021. Despite the decline, though, the country still has the largest British-born community in Europe outside of the UK. On Wednesday the 5th, the public broadcaster RTV revealed it has received nearly 900 song submissions for Benidorm Fest 2027, reflecting strong interest in the country's 2027 Eurovision Song Selection Contest. The country didn't take part in Eurovision 2026, following its decision to withdraw over Israel's participation in the contest. The selected artists and songs will be announced in the coming months as preparations begin for the festival, which determines Spain's representative for the Eurovision Song Contest. And finally, interesting piece from the news outlet El País. Journalist Eva Saiz explores the uncertain future of Sevilla's historic corralones, traditional courtyard workshops that have long provided affordable space for artists, musicians, and small creative businesses. Using the ongoing dispute over the Castelar Street corralones as a case study where tenants say they are being pushed out to make way for a hotel and apartments, Saiz argues these spaces are more than historic buildings. They're living communities that have helped shape Sevilla's creative and economic identity for generations. Her article asks a bigger question. What happens to a city and its personality when the places that give it character are priced out? You'll find a link to the full piece in the show notes below. And that's it for this week. Thanks for joining us. Anything to ask or tell us, email us at info@rorschach.com. Hasta la próxima.